So what's going on in Europe was with ExxonMobil and BP, with Farage and causing the Brexit move with Steve Bannon causing they wanted to monopolize the flow of energy into Europe. They didn't want Germany to control the flow of energy into Europe. And now you got America with OPEC plus one in America with the petrol reserve dollar. They're playing a tug of war when it comes to fossil fuels with Europe. And that's why Putin was using Rex Tillerson to trip up Trump when it came to Ukraine and supplying Ukraine with energy because Putin wants to weaken NATO. And Trump was the quickest way to do that for 4 years of using Trump as a klutz by using Rex Tillerson and ExxonMobil in the Russian Arctic with BP to trip up Trump. But Trump was all in. He wanted to use him and Farage wanted a Brexit Britain, and they wanted to make a monopoly out flooding and supplying Western Europe with Russian Arctic energy, as long as they made venture deals for themselves. And so now this petrodollar uh, is being challenged by OPEC plus one as the world reserve, being trading fossil fuels. So that's why I'm so critical when it comes to liberating the world with electric, clean, renewable vehicles. I think that the world should have the right to rise up from poverty by not being forced by hegemony of nations that control the world and enslave the world to the fossil fuel dependencies of transportations, because transportations is what props up activities and allows economies to grow is activity of commerce, whether there be manufacturing, construction, textiles, is all depending on energy. And so if all that is controlled by petrol, fossil fuels, then it gives countries like America with when Roosevelt promised the House of Salt to peg the petrodollar, and then they monopolized the petrodollar. America does as a world sole superpower to have economical hegemony over the world. These type of conflict energies with scoundrels like Trump makes it unattractive to people like me to believe in these type of systems in America of hegemony. That's why I want the world and nations to have their own transportation systems with clean, renewable energies. As far as electric vehicles, electric planes, electric cars, electric trucks, electric trains, to have households that are heated with clean, renewable energies. So, so this tug of war between that's tearing Europe apart, and this year is going to be, this season, this winter is going to be tearing Europe apart because of people like Trump, snake oils con artist that he is, and people like Putin that are jostling the world because they have the reservoirs of fossil fuels. And so they're economically, America doesn't want to recognize and doesn't want to claim the truth of this petrodollar and the hegemony that they have over the world with this petrodollar. That's why to this day the Democrats don't out Trump for his fossil fuel deals in Russia, because they don't want to jeopardize the markets. They don't want to panic the market, and they don't want to collapse America's fossil fuel industry, thereby weakening the American dollar. They don't want to do that, so they let people like Trump, they turn a blind eye to his corruption with Rex Tillerson and car icons. They don't want to speak truth to words. The Democrats don't, because they're afraid of panicking the markets. And they want this monopoly of hegemony to continue. So when I see Biden as an individual, he believes in clean renewable energies. He believes in weaning off of petrol fuels. That's why I support Biden. People like Trump, I despise Trump. And to this day, Trump was undermining the European Union just to monopolize it and keep it addicted to America's supply of Exxon and BP, because it was BP along with Exxon. When Putin invaded Ukraine for the second time, it was BP right along with Exxon. So you can wonder why Farage and Trump were laying down in bed in 2016, trying to undermine the European Union because they wanted Germany to collapse as far as their oil imports into Western Europe. Britain was too afraid of Germany being the number one economic country in Europe, Britain wanted to be the number one, so that's why they Brexited off with Farage and Trump. In order to undermine Nord Stream 2, Nord Stream 1, they wanted to supply, BP and Exxon wanted to supply energy to Europe by controlling the markets into Europe of fossil fuels. And now you got OPEC plus one, and they're trying, between America and Russia, it's a tug of war between OPEC. And America doesn't want to lose its prestige position with its petrodollar. So people like me are we are unheard, meaning they don't talk about people like me in the news, and they don't speak truth to words, because the politicians will say this is a security threat to America's interests to speak this way, the way Romero is speaking. You got to know there's a hegemony that's been going on since America became a sole superpower on this petrodollar. It gives America the ability to control the world, WTO, the IMF, the SWIFT system, the Bank of Settlements. America can embargo, economical sanction any nation and deprive them of energy through OPEC, floating the petro greenback, dollar, reserves, currencies. We can control the commerce. We can deny a nation access to energy, which will collapse their economies overnight. We can deny a nation access to the world banking systems, which will cause them to have hyperinflations. And so, people like Trump, it's just a sad truth of America. For 100 years, America and Britain and the Dutch royal family has been warmonger in the Middle East for the love of oil. They were genocidically warmonger in the Middle East for the love of oil. So these truths is for the reason that I want to liberate the world off of these fossil fuels and off of these hegemonies. I want the world to lift themselves up from poverty. So to have their own transportations that are self-sufficient, that can not be interfered by any other nation. In other words, that they can have the right to clean, peaceful, renewable energies. And I believe commerce supposed to, as far as the World Bank and the systems of the world order, it should be independent, sovereign bankings of nations that is not overseen by a hegemony of the Eurozone through the Federal Reserve and the greenback controlling what nations get what as far as the third world is concerned. So I believe for that reason that all nations should have the right to their sovereign banking systems, that no other nation can infringe with tariffs or sanctions, economical sanctions, that's not, it shouldn't be centrally monopolized by America Federal Reserve and the Bank of Britain's and the Eurozone currencies through a system of hegemony that America is leading only by propping up the petro economy. That's how it's been going on for a long, long time. America needs to find another way of doing business. A cleaner, more fair, more distributed way, more democratic way. And the way to do that is to liberate the world from the shackles of fossil fuels. Let the world countries have unlimited supply to energy, so they can rise and maintain their populations at a decent standard of living as far as economical wealth is concerned. That's the way I feel. That's why I'm initiating these transportation system technologies and residential energy technologies, clean, new electrical, renewable off-grid systems that I'm developing. That's what motivates me to make humanity more self-sufficient, more liberated, more prosperous. And just seeing the way that, in my opinion, how this system, this world order, is really unfair to the rest of the world for Washington to have that much power against the rest of the world. That's why I don't want to. The only way to liberate the world is to speak truth to words. And not only that, the planet cannot be subverted because of these pollutions of the world transportation systems and the way factories burn through carbon emissions. The world is not it's not stabilized. It's destabilizing itself when it comes to depreciations in the ozone layers of because of the greenhouse effects, oceans rising because of the Arctic shifts of melting glaciers. So, for environmental purposes and economical purposes and political science purposes, this hegemony of fossil fuel has to end through the rest of the world. The world has to be liberated. It has to be freed. It has to rise up from poverty. So, yeah, if Washington gets hurt bipartisanly for what I had to say, then let the truth hurt when you hear it. But let freedom ring. So, what Trump had in mind for Europe, it was through controlling the import of Western energy through ExxonMobil transmittance lines from the Russian Arctic. And that's why Trump wanted to undermine the Eurozone, because Germany controls the most wealth in Europe. And so Trump got together with Farage, and through BP and Exxon, they wanted to undermine the European Union to prop up America's economy and Britain's economy. That's what Trump and Farage had in mind. So Putin realizes what Trump was up to with Rex Tillerson, and he used Rex Tillerson to trip up America's affairs under Trump. And he enticed Exxon and BP to drill and build pipelines in the Russian territories with only the intentions to alienate them once he invaded Ukraine, and thereby causing them to leave the Arctic. In other words, Putin wants to control. It's not in Putin's interest to prop up Americans' greenback petrodollar. And so Trump wasn't able to comprehend that. That is not in Putin's interest to make America that much powerful with the petrodollar, to prop up America's hegemony by allowing America to control the flow of Russian energy into Europe by Exxon pipelines. You get what I'm saying? Putin doesn't want to let Exxon have a monopoly on flooding Russian energy into Europe, Western Europe, or into India or into China. Putin doesn't want Exxon to have that monopoly along with BP. But he was just using it to trip them up and trip up the European Union under the Trump administration. So he played Trump like a klutz. Putin did for 4 years, while Trump was brown-nosing Putin, while Trump was begging and groveling at his coattails to make these backroom deals with Exxon back into the Russian Arctic. And Putin was just playing him like a sap. And because of it, now the European Union is damaged. The Eurozone economy is damaged. And now Western Europe is going to freeze for this winter. And you notice Trump said about Putin, when Putin said he was doing the mission on Ukraine as a peacekeeping force, Trump said, "Oh, that was very smart of Putin to say that." Putin is a stable genius to use the lie of a peacekeeping initiative. In other words, Trump has no type of Trump doesn't see that Putin is playing him. Trump thinks that Putin is going to allow him to profiteer with ExxonMobil. But in reality, Putin is just using Trump's narrow view as America's Achilles heel. Between OPEC plus one, they're undermining America. As far as snake oil, Trump and his ambitions with Exxon for Russian energy. Trump is so desperate that he laid down with the Taliban for the love of these pipelines. He basically forsake 9/11 just to lay down with Abdul, just to get the Taliban not to terrorize those transmittance ExxonMobil pipelines. For America under Trump to flood energy into India and China, thinking that Exxon was going to make 30% profit out of it, of transmitting pipeline fees. 30% they wanted from transmitting Russian energy into those pipelines. You think Putin wants to prop up the greenback, the petrodollar? It's not in his interest to lay down with ExxonMobil and allow America to profiteer off of Russian energy. But that's how smooth he is as a counterintelligence KGB officer. He seen Trump was the weakest link in America. That's why he invaded Ukraine during the midterms for the second time, because he sees Trump is going to run for 2024, and that's when Europe, under the Trump fascism, might fracture. You got the Brotherhood of Italy rising up, the Fraternity of Brotherhood of that Mussolini started that party that originated from Mussolini's fascism. You got Orbach following Trump, and the president of Italy following Trump. You have Britain, conservatives following Trump. So Putin seen that as a weakness to fracture the European Union, using Trump as an idiot medium of exchange to do it. And that's why I've been connecting the dots for the FBI and the CIA ever since 2015, when it came to Trump. Because he wants to divide and conquer, just to monopolize the world into fossil fuels. He wants to bully his way through the European Union, thinking that he can play the monopoly game and control the utility companies of fossil fuels. And in Trump's instance, he just wants to have bank laundered money to his real estate endeavors. And the best way to do it is through these fossil fuel companies that control the world commerce through the petrodollar. That's the conservative movement of Trump, is the fossil fuels through the Republican Party. And to this day, I'm ashamed that the Democrats don't out him for the scoundrel snake oil's truth of the Russian collusion. They don't speak truth to words, the Democrats. They don't out him when it comes to the Arctic, Russian Arctic. They are too afraid to speak truth to words, the Democrats. They're weak-spined to out the truth of the Russian collusion within Trump's administration in the Russian Arctic. I'm just pointing out the truths. And to this day, I'm frustrated with the Democratic Party for not outing Trump for the scoundrel that he is, that he truly is. For the Justice Department not to connect the dots with Exxon and Trump in the Russian Arctic. For them to vet out the Justice Department and bipartisanly keep this on a hush-hush of Trump dealings in the Russian Arctic. Trying to make Putin part of the G8 in the row so they can profiteer with Exxon, supplying energy into Western Europe, India, and China. Eventually, the historians will say Romero spoke the truth, while the rest of Capitol Hill was quavering and quivering behind the shadows of their bureaucracies, afraid to unleash the truth. America, capitalism of Capitol Hill, is still stuck on petroleums. They want that monopoly. They want that monopoly of hegemony. And to this day, that's why I'm disappointed with the Democrats. You got people like Biden that believe in clean renewable energies, but they don't want to out Trump with Rex Tillerson and Carl Icahn. They don't want to speak truth to words. They're too afraid to say, yeah, Trump's true corruption with Russia was the Russian Arctic. And this is what they had in plan for Western Europe and India. That's why he laid down with Abdul and forsake the movement and the people that died in 9/11 in those buildings and in those planes. Trump sold that out for the love of oil and gave Abdul freedom from prison with the Taliban, imposing them back in governance just for them not to terrorize or damage those pipelines. So to me, Trump is a clear and present danger not only to the European Union when it comes to these fossil fuel snake oil deals, but he's trying to impose himself on the Republic of America. And these conservatives, Republicans, are dead stuck on fossil fuels. Oh, the windmills are not spinning. Oh, I gotta flush the toilet 10 times. Oh, I want Thomas Edison condensing light bulbs to come right back in style instead of these LEDs. The LEDs shine too much. It makes me look ugly. It makes me look like I'm sweating. That's what Trump's snake oil Rockefeller father of a weasel he is.